you get to a point where keeping everyone's peace is corrupting, disrupting, perturbing yours. And then it's time to make a change. Why do I tell this story is that perhaps you have been in experiences where you've allowed yourself to be devalued and disrespected on some level by a lover who lusted after you but didn't love you, by a job that didn't treat you right. They took way more from you than they offered you. Guys, I've been kind of nervous to make this video for a long time, because something about the topic of holding space for rage and anger as a black man in a country where black men are on average 6 times more likely to be incarcerated for doing the same things as our white counterparts is scary, right? I grew up from a young age hearing and knowing that I wasn't allowed to act up and pop off like my peers. And maybe on some level, you've also internalized the narrative, whether or not you're a black man, that anger is not an appropriate emotion for you to express. But what I'm learning in my journey is that not only is it critical to hold space for rage, it is the assignment. Holding space for rage allows us to unlock everything we want for ourselves. And it was only once I really started to live that and move through the feelings instead of doing, I'm fine, I'm good, could I actually move forward, unhindered, unencumbered by all this stuff getting on my nerves, by all the people playing in my face and pretending they weren't. Lovers, colleagues, former friends, you name it. So in this video, we're going to talk a little about what it looks like to hold space for your rage and what it looks like to carry out habits that make you feel more free. So first, why don't we let ourselves experience anger? Like I said, being a black male, I grew up with messaging that you're just not safe to express rage and anger. And so I learned to be very agreeable. I learned to be quite the people pleaser. And I found myself in my work, in my dating life, really accepting some bullshit until I learned to alchemize my anger into self-advocacy, into speaking my mind. I kid you not, y'all. I'll never forget, I was in this interracial relationship once upon a time that made me very cautious about dating white people. And I was with a guy who, on the surface, made me feel very valued, or he was very intrigued with me. But I felt that as he got to know me better, and as I'd bring things to his attention about, hey, your family member said this thing was kind of classist, or hey, I don't always feel welcome in these spaces. Could we hang out somewhere that feels a little bit more culturally my speed, not just your speed? I was always met with some level of contempt and disdain when I shared my truth. And it left me feeling like I was somebody's fetish, not somebody's lover. And hear me out, e-cousins, because you must think I'm like Dr. Umar, and you think that I call white people snow bunnies, and you think that I only believe in dating your race. No. What matters more than dating somebody who looks like you is dating someone who respects and values and cherishes you. And that can happen across color lines. We know that. But so often in my experience with interracial dating, it feels like this one-sided dynamic where the black person, the brown person assimilates and changes themselves for the white person and assimilates into whiteness, whereas the white person just kind of stays how they are and just rests on their laurels of privilege and comfort. And that is so not the vibe. It is not the vibe. And it took time to process and unpack that to make sure I never repeated that pattern again. This person was enchanted with the idea of the tall, dark, handsome black guy that they saw in somebody's Tyler Perry movie or somebody's Coach Carter, but not interested in knowing me as a whole person. And it took me the longest time to unpack and unprocess the layers of rage that were connected to being in that dynamic. Why do I tell this story is that perhaps you have been in experiences where you've allowed yourself to be devalued and disrespected on some level by a lover who lusted after you but didn't love you, by a job that didn't treat you right. They took way more from you than they offered you. And you never gave yourself a chance to process that. You didn't, I'm fine. You cried to yourself. And then you move forward. Right? Like a good boy, good girl. And who did that help? No one. The hardest part for me and moving forward after experiencing different levels of disrespect or perceived injustices, right, is being honest with myself about what part of me thought it was okay to tolerate that. Because even if other people were out of order, even if other people were disrespectful, even if other people were just dusty and grimy and rude, you know, and squandered you, even if they were careless with your heart, what part did you play in tolerating that thing by accepting it? Because it's that saying of, well, you don't attract what you are, but on a level you entertain what you think you deserve until you're like, time's up. You get to a point where keeping everyone's peace is corrupting, disrupting, perturbing yours. And then it's time to make a change. And that's why it's so important to process our anger. And you know what's also wild about not processing our anger, as it took me a while to process it with that janky interracial relationship, is that when you store your emotions inside yourself, it can cause cancers, it can cause all sorts of illness. Our bodies use this thing called somaticizing our emotions. They're real. And so when we don't express things and process them, it manifests as disease, inflammation, autoimmune diseases, all sorts of janky situations. Why would you want a janky situation if you could prevent one?
Women have 80% of autoimmune disease in this society. Diseases where the immune system attacks the body happens to women much more than to men. Things like rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lupus, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, inflammatory diseases of the gut. Why? Compulsively concerned with the emotional needs of others rather than their own. Identified with duty, role, and responsibilities that work in the world rather than their own true selves. They tended to suppress healthy anger. So they tend to be very, very nice and peacemakers.
Okay, so we cleared the air. Why it's so important to process our feelings. Why it's so scary too. But why it's mission critical too, in order to unlock what you deserve for yourself. Now cue the hard part of doing it. The scary part about expressing your emotions, especially rage. My experience is that it is an all-consuming, very intense emotion that can leave you feeling powerless. I get the shakes sometimes when I get really angry. I see red, I can't focus. And there's no one right thing to do. You can do escape the room. You can go throw some axes at a facility. At a board, not a person. Don't pull a Luigi on us. Don't go Joker on us. All right, that'll just make things worse. It might make you feel better in the moment, but I can't come get you if you get locked up. Okay. It's so important to express your anger in ways, you know, whether it's journaling, working out, calling a friend. But what I've learned is unconstructive is trying to reason with the unreasonable. Is continuing to go back to the people who hurt us and aren't taking accountability for the things that they did wrong. Expecting an apology. I made the mistake of doing that one too many times. My camera died. You know, the peak of insanity is also trying to change a toxic work culture. Instead of accepting, okay, this is the way it is. Do I want to play by these rules? Or what am I going to do? Right? You're not a tree. You can get up and move. And expressing our emotions is a part of coming to that aha. I feel like expressing our anger, processing our rage, being curious about what is here to teach us is on par with reclaiming our efficacy, our agency to change things and make things better for ourselves. And so,
if you're not angry, you're either a stone or you're too sick to be angry. You should be angry.
But what do you do with it?
Now, mind you, There's a difference. You must not be bitter.
That's a
Ah,
hard.
but
That's
let
a
me show you
hard.
why. Bitterness is like cancer. It eats upon the host. It doesn't do anything to the object of its displeasure. So use that anger, yes. You write it, you paint it, you dance it, you march it, you vote it, you do everything about it, you talk it. Never stop talking it.
But very briefly, let's touch on what are some things you can do as you process that anger and alchemize it into love. Alchemize that anger into things that make your life better, right? Because a lot of people just stay stuck. They end up with high blood pressure, make themselves all stressy. You know what I mean? Bitter. How you doing? Oh, I'm fighting the fight. How you doing? Oh, I'm holding on. How you doing? Oh, I'm still here. It's like, all right, Eeyore. All right, rageful Randy. What are you gonna do with all that? I'm a huge fan of, okay, we processed it, we've been through it. Now what? Make things better for yourself and for someone connected to you, because anger is also the part of you that wants to be more free. Anger is also the part of you that knows you deserve better and doesn't want to settle for less than what you deserve. So it's also about self-advocacy. One thing I've learned to do when it comes to dating is making people prove why they deserve a spot in my life. I love my life as it is. Are you going to add to this cipher that's happening? Because if you're not a positive influence in this cipher, you can get to the road. You can keep going. Get out of here, man. Right? I have learned, instead of being bitter in jobs I work, to advocate for myself. Ask for what I need. Be good at my job. Build respect with people. And not shy away from hard conversations that will allow my work and personal life to have more harmony and synergy. You know what I mean? What is your anger trying to tell you about where you need to stand on business? Where you need to create a plan to stop being taken for a fool? Where you need to get out of situationships with people or places, spaces, lovers who don't really love you? What is that anger telling you about what needs to change in order for you to experience more freedom? So, quick question. Does any of this sound interesting to you? Monthly book club meetings, bonus content of this variety of a similar ilk to which you've experienced. First dibs on ebooks I write. Like-minded community. Well, if you like it, it's the sound of any of that, you should head over to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Travis Percy. And let's keep the party going. All right? We'll talk soon.